The mirror is cracked in the corner. You have memorized the crack. You stare at it every night because it gives you somewhere to look that isn't the door. Downstairs, you can hear it. Laughter that doesn't mean anything, glass on wood. A man's voice rising and then going quiet again. The smell of pipe smoke has settled into the wallpaper so deeply that you no longer notice it except in moments like this one, when everything else goes still. You are 17 years old. You are sitting on the edge of a bed that does not belong to you, in a room that does not belong to you, wearing a dress that was chosen for you by a woman who has not smiled at you in 3 months. Your hands are in your lap. You are waiting. You are always waiting. And you already know, though you could not say when you first understood it, that waiting is your life now. Not the minutes before something happens. Not the pause between one thing and the next. The waiting is the thing. It didn't happen the way people imagine. There was no single terrible night, no villain in a top hat. It happened slowly, the way cold gets into a house, through small gaps, one after another, until you are simply frozen and cannot remember being warm. Your father died the winter you were 14. Fever. 3 days and then gone. You remember the sound your mother made when she understood he wasn't waking. You have never heard a sound like that from a human being since, and you hope you never will again. After that, the arithmetic of survival became very simple and very brutal. Your mother took in washing. Your younger brother ran errands. You found work in a milliner's shop, 12 hours a day, 6 days a week, for wages that just barely kept you in bread. Then the shop closed. Then a woman named Mrs. Hartley introduced herself to your mother. She was well dressed. She spoke softly. She talked about opportunities for a girl with a pretty face, about a house in the city where young women were looked after, where they wanted for nothing. She used the word respectable twice in one sentence. She left behind a small amount of money, not a payment, she said, a gesture of goodwill. Your mother cried that night. You pretended to be asleep and listened to her cry. And in the morning nothing was said, and 2 days later you were on a cart to London with everything you owned wrapped in a cloth. You were 15. You told yourself it would only be for a little while. The house on C Street is neither the worst nor the best of its kind. You will learn this eventually. You will learn to measure everything on a scale you didn't know existed before you arrived. Mrs. Hartley runs it with the precision of a mill foreman and the vocabulary of a respectable landlady. She calls the women in her house her girls. She calls the work entertaining. She calls the men who come through her front door gentlemen, regardless of how they behave once they're inside. There are 7 of you. The oldest is 24, though she looks older. Her name is Clara, and she rarely speaks to the newer girls, not out of cruelty, but out of a kind of economy. She has learned not to spend herself on people who may not last. The house has rules. You were given them on your first morning, recited by a woman named Agnes who manages the accounts and sleeps in the room beside Mrs. Hartley's. You do not leave without permission. You do not keep money given to you privately. You do not fall ill without consequence. You do not form attachments. The last rule was stated almost gently, as though it were advice between friends. You would not understand what it meant until later. You wake before 10. The morning belongs to you in the loosest sense, meaning no one is requiring anything of you yet, which is the closest thing to freedom the day contains. You wash in cold water from a basin. The soap smells of tallow and something floral on top of that. An attempt at elegance that doesn't quite cover what's underneath. You dress in the clothes Agnes lays out, not what you would choose, but you stop thinking about what you would choose some time ago. Breakfast is taken together, the 7 of you in a back room that gets no morning light. The food is adequate. Mrs. Hartley understands that hungry women look unwell, and unwell women are bad for business. You eat because your body requires it. The conversation is quiet, careful. You have learned to speak in a register that communicates without revealing, a skill you did not know was a skill until you found you had it. The afternoon is preparation. Hair, dress, the particular expression you have practiced. Open, pleasant, available. You watch yourself in that cracked mirror and you make adjustments. You have become very good at making adjustments. The evenings are when the house becomes what it is. You will not dwell here on the particulars. What matters, what history will one day fail to record with any accuracy, is not the mechanics of it. What matters is the cost. The slow, cumulative cost of being looked at as though you are a thing to be used and then set down. The cost of smiling when you do not feel like smiling. The cost of making a man feel welcome in a place where you yourself do not feel welcome. By midnight, you are exhausted in a way that sleep does not entirely fix. You carry a tiredness that lives below the tiredness, something in the chest, or behind the eyes. You will wake up with it tomorrow. You do not owe Mrs. Hartley money. This is technically true, but you owe her the dress, which she purchased for you. You owe her the room, which she provides. You owe her the food, the soap, the coal and the small fireplace, the fee she paid to the woman who found you. These debts are never totaled in front of you, never written on paper you are allowed to hold. They exist in Agnes's ledger, and Agnes will tell you what you owe when you ask, and the number is always just slightly more than what you've managed to put aside. You are not a prisoner. The front door is not locked from the inside. You could, in theory, walk out tomorrow morning, but you would walk out with nothing, no wages, no character reference, no place to go, wearing a dress that belongs to Mrs. Hartley, into a city that has very specific ideas about what kind of woman you are now and what kind of future you are owed. The city would look at you and see what you have become, and it would offer you exactly nothing. So you stay. This is how control works in this house. Not through chains, through arithmetic, through the simple, suffocating mathematics of having no other option. There are inspections. Under the Contagious Diseases Acts, a constable may require you to present yourself to a certified surgeon, to be examined, to be registered. You become a name in a government ledger. You become a known prostitute in the language of the law, which means you have fewer legal protections than the women who walk past this house every morning on their way to church. You were not consulted about this. You were told. There are things they cannot take, though they take most things. Clara has a small book, poems, you think, though she's never shown you the inside. She keeps it under the loose board beneath the washstand. You have never mentioned that you know it's there. One of the younger girls, Mary, hums to herself when she's dressing. A particular tune. Something from wherever she came from before this. You don't know the words, but you recognize the shape of it. The way it sounds like somewhere else. Like a before. You have your own small thing. Every morning, before anyone else is awake, you sit at the window and watch the street below for exactly as long as you allow yourself. You watch the women going to market, the boys running messages, the old man who sells chestnuts from a barrow and argues with pigeons. You watch ordinary life moving through ordinary morning, and you hold yourself very still, and you let yourself want it, just for a few minutes. Then you get up and wash your face, and you do not want it anymore. This is the small resistance. Letting yourself feel it, and then folding it away, clean, where no one can find it and use it against you. 3 weeks ago, a girl arrived. She was younger than you were when you came. 14, perhaps. Though she said 16 in the practiced way, that means the number has been arranged, not discovered. Her name was Ellen. She was from somewhere in the countryside, some village that had never been large enough to be on a map anyone here had ever seen. She was frightened in a way she was trying very hard not to show, and you recognized the trying because you had done it yourself, and you recognized the underneath of it too. On her third night, she sat beside you at dinner and asked you, very quietly, whether it was true what Agnes had told her, that after 6 months she could save enough to leave. You looked at her. You had the information she was asking for. You had the answer. You had been here long enough to know the exact shape of the answer, every edge of it. 6 months becomes a year, becomes 2. The debt adjusts. The number in Agnes's ledger moves in one direction only. Ellen was looking at you with an expression that wanted so badly to be reassured. You thought about what Clara had never said to you in those first weeks. How Clara's silence had felt like cruelty and had turned out, later, to be something more complicated. A refusal to spend hope on what hope could not help. You opened your mouth, and then you closed it, and then you said, "It depends on how careful you are." which was not a lie. It was the smallest, most careful piece of the truth you could offer without taking away the only thing she had, which was the next 6 months. She needed to believe something long enough to get through the next 6 months. Maybe something would change. Sometimes something changed. You told yourself that. You still tell yourself that. You don't know if you did the right thing. You're not sure the right thing existed. The crack in the mirror catches the candlelight in a particular way, some nights. It throws a line of brightness up across the ceiling, and for a moment the room looks almost different. Almost like a room where a different kind of story might be told. Then the candle moves. The light goes. You are still sitting on the edge of the bed. You are still waiting. And somewhere in this city, in 10 houses, in 100, in a number no one is accurately counting, someone else is sitting exactly where you are sitting. Someone else is staring at a crack in a wall, or a window, or a door. Someone else is folding away the wanting. No one is coming. That is not despair. That is simply the shape of the world you live in, and you have learned to hold its shape without breaking. You blow out the candle. You lie down. You close your eyes. Tomorrow is the same as today, and the day after is the same as tomorrow. And somewhere beneath all of that, very quiet, very small, and entirely your own, you are still there.